to you from the city with 4,000 street food vendors, 2 of them approved by the health department. It's Ventriloquism Weekly. Hey, it's another Monday, it's another fun day. I am so thrilled to welcome you back for part 2 of our interview with Pete Michaels. When we last left Pete, a booker had approached him about being on Showtime at the Apollo. Let me apologize again for my sinus infection and the little sniffles you might hear throughout the second half. Pete Michaels continues to hold nothing back in what I believe is the most honest and riveting section of our discussion. And now, the thrilling conclusion of our interview with Pete Michaels.
Some time goes by, a couple of weeks, I get a phone call from this guy. He said, listen, we're doing what they call Laugh Thursdays at the Apollo. And what we're doing is we're bringing certain comics that we like, and upstairs from the theater, we have studios, and one of the studios we're converting into a mock nightclub. And we're going to invite audience up there, and, we're going to make a nightclub setting, and we're going to, see how the comics do. And the ones that we like, we're going to put on the TV show. And it's like a paid audition. I said, okay. So I come up there, and I did about 5 of those on those Thursdays. And before you know it, I get a call. I'm in my car, and I get a call from Sarah Smith from Bob Banner Associates out in Beverly Hills, the producers of Showtime at the Apollo. She said, hi, my name is blah. She says, Joe Bertrand gave me a number, and we would love to have you on the show. I said, okay, it sounds good. I said, is it a union thing? Is it after contract? She goes, yes. Are you a union member? I said, yeah. Okay, fine. That's that hurdle out of the way. She said, this is what we pay, blah, blah, blah. Every time it shows, you get residual payments. I said, okay. And this is the time and the place, and blah, 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 and do it. Okay. So we had one more Laugh Thursday to do before the actual taping. And this one they did in the theater. So they said, we're going to bring everybody, into the theater. He said, now the difference is, with the ones upstairs, we kind of handpicked the people that we let up there because, we were serving alcohol and stuff because they had a license to do that. He said, but when you get to the theater, it's going to be general public. We don't charge them to get in. We're not allowed. He said, but, it's going to be a different crowd. He says, I said, okay. He goes, well, I'm just letting you know that you've seen Amateur Night. This is that crowd. They're going to be kind of brutal with the acts. I said, all right, I'll do the best I can. So my friend who got me the China Chalet thing about a year ago, he was there as one of the comics. He goes on first. He gets about 45 seconds into his routine, and the boo machine came on.
Oh.
By the boo machine, I mean the audience.
Oh.
Yeah, they just started. They're like, boo, boo, get off. Now, normally they had, on the TV show for Amateur Night, they would play a siren, to get you off. People in the audience are doing that. They're making that noise. So all these siren noises are coming out of the audience. I'm waiting in the wings with Woody D.
No.
And I hear all of this, and I'm like, oh, no. So he's like, all right, Apollo, take care, y'all. And he walks off the stage, and he walks by me in like a haze. And I'm like, oh, God. So now I'm thinking to myself, okay, they just booed a brother off the stage. Here I am, a white guy coming out with a black puppet. They've never seen me before. I'm dead. So the stage manager standing in the wings next to me, he goes, don't worry, man. He goes, you're going to rock them. I've seen you work upstairs. I said, yeah, okay, right. So all right, calm down, y'all. Calm down. All right, give the brother a break now. All right, this next guy we're going to bring up right now, he's a very funny man. He says some of the words of, a comedy team or whatever. Give it up for Pete Michaels and Woody D. So I come out, and the applause goes from, applause to, nothing.
Oh, no.
Nothing. I mean, I'm hearing crickets at this point. So,
oh, boy.
Out of the balcony in the darkness, I hear this female voice, and she yells out, so everybody could hear now, yo, why the dummy got to be black? And I'm like, oh, God, that's it. I'm not even going to last the 40 seconds. So I hear the audience starting to murmur, yeah, sister, yeah. So now Woody takes over, the Woody part of my brain. I have him look all around. I have him look up into the balcony, and he points with his left hand. He goes, yo, 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 baby, you up in the nosebleed seats. He goes, for your information, the dummy's white. And they went crazy. They went absolutely crazy. And then we started going into the routine, and we killed. And then that's when I walked off backstage, and everybody's patting me on the back going, man, that is the funniest thing we ever saw, blah, 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 blah. You know, when are you doing the TV show? I said, well, I'm supposed to do it next week. Well, great, man, you're going to kill. So that was the first big stage thing at the Apollo in the actual theater.
It's great.
And had it not been for that comeback from Woody D, probably wouldn't have happened.
What do you think it was about the way it worked? You worked off of each other, you know, you being, as you said, you being white and the other person being African American.
Because I knew what they wanted. I had the sense to know this audience wants to see the little black kid rip the white guy up.
Yeah.
I knew that. I knew that going in. I knew that from the shows that I had already done upstairs in the studio. You know, and doing this as long as I had, and working with Woody in as many venues as I did, I knew that the self-deprecating thing of Woody ripping me up, and everybody knew it was me doing it to me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but the thing is, once you create that strong character, people start to believe that, hey, you know, the little guy is doing the talking, and he's ripping the hell out of the big guy, and this is working, and I'm buying it, and I'm laughing at it, and I'm digging it. So I knew that was the way to go with that. No matter what happened that day, I knew that the only way I was going to get over with this crowd was to rip myself up in front of the people. Because you got to remember, in the Apollo audience, there weren't that many white people that were there. There were a handful, you know, but it's mostly black and Latino. That's the audience. You know, that's the target audience that they, because it's such a legendary venue, and so few white acts got their start there. I mean, a lot of them did, but I knew at that point that this is what I needed to do. This is how I was going to get over, especially that hurdle of that female yelling out in the darkness, because there was no way to compete with that any other way. There was no way to tell her, oh, shut up, you know, because then for sure I was dead.
Right. Yeah.
So I knew right then and there. I said, okay, this is what I got to do. You know, I got to be, you know, I got to make Woody the bad guy, make him the heavy, but at the same time, not make it look like I was doing some kind of, you know, old school pickaninny, you know, minstrel show nonsense.
Yeah.
Because that would have turned everybody off. And I've seen guys try to do that through the years, working with black figures, that really couldn't pull it off. Because of that real reason, because the voice and the mannerisms and everything that they gave the puppet just read wrong. You know, I got offended watching it, and you know, I'm not a black man by any stretch of the word. I don't know what it is to grow up black and with all, you know, the problems that must entail, of profiling and all that other stuff. But I've got enough experience, life experience with friends of mine, through years. And unlike some of my best friends are black. You know, I do have a lot of black friends and Latino friends, and you know, many different type of people because of what I do and where I live. You know, it's not that I grew up in white land. I grew up in, you know, mixed land, and I'm glad for that because I got to understand people on a broad basis rather than just a couple here and there. So that was the thing that worked best with Woody, because it was always. You know, the little guy. Everybody wants to see the little guy get over on the big guy.
Right.
You know, and that's been the basis of ventriloquist acts for years, and it's still to this day. I mean, the little guy gets. And I always told people, I says, you know, I think the most bizarre vent act I'd ever want to see would be like, you know, the ventriloquist getting over on the little guy, you know, and like slapping the puppet around and choking him and so. You're never going to see that. I said, but that would be so bizarre to watch. You know, start off as a typical ventriloquist act. and all of a sudden, like, the big guy's getting over, putting down the little guy, getting all the funny lines, and the little guy is the victim. And I'm like, you'd never see that, but that would be so bizarre to look at.
Yeah, that would be such the antithesis.
It'd be like the anti-vent act,
Yeah. Now the other question off of that, and that all the vents who know your work and know about Woody D is, after all this success that you had because of him, why did you retire him for a period?
Oh, well, there we go.
If you don't mind my asking, if it's a touchy
No.
point.
No, I'll be the first one to admit when I've made a mistake in my life. And my advice to any ventriloquist out there, or any performer for that matter, follow your heart. Don't listen to other people. Even though they may mean well or may not mean well or whatever, follow that little voice in your head and in your heart that tells you this is what I should be doing, and maybe they're not right. What happened was, this one particular agent who booked a lot of colleges, who used to come to the event conventions a lot and try to recruit talent, no names mentioned, they booked me. They signed me up to a 3-year deal. And we did some shows, and, the problem with certain college, what I found at the time, college audiences, is that, they don't know how to read an act, especially a white guy with a black puppet. We were very successful in a lot of the shows that we did. And at the one point when I think it was the Rodney King thing had been done with, and I think it was between Rodney King and OJ, right in between those two things. And there was a lot of stuff in the news about, tensions and this and that, And this agent says to me, I said, why are we not getting any more work? Why are we not getting much work? Well, because of all the racial things going on right now, maybe if you had a white puppet, it'd be a lot easier. Now, Gitch already was established as a Puerto Rican, so, I couldn't change the whole act for Gitch. And I'm like, okay. So I said, what are you telling me? I said, I got to lose Woody D? Well, if you had a white... Now, I had 2 Woody Ds made. One is a backup and one is the standard one I used. So I said, okay. So I took one of the Woodies and I painted him white, and he became Buddy. So then, after I got the Dunny all painted, after I wrote a whole new routine, I brought it up to the office, and they were like, well, maybe we should just, let the contract lapse at this point. And I'm like, what?
Oh, boy.
What? Well, it's hard to sell a new act. I said, you made me change my whole act. Do you know how hard it is to write a new act? I said, and now you made me change it. I've been doing this act in the clubs, and now you're telling me that the deal is off? What?
Because they asked you to change it?
They asked me to change it. I changed it. But then they were like, it got to the point where I was no longer the flavor of the month.
Right.
So I was like, oh, that's the way it is. Okay, just, kick me aside like an old tin can. So at that point, I was using Buddy, and I had bookings, and I was doing stuff with Buddy, and and Buddy was like Woody, but he wasn't Woody. The energy wasn't the same. It really wasn't. It was two different things. Woody hit like a machine gun. Buddy hit like a .38.
Yeah.
It was a totally different thing, and Buddy could never replace Woody, but unfortunately he did. Only because at that point I was using Buddy so much that I couldn't do Woody at that point. It was just, I was so used to, I had photos made with Buddy, and everything I had with all my promo material was all with Buddy. The videos had Buddy. Buddy had been on an NBA commercial, and so on and so forth. So he was the guy. And it took almost 15, almost 20 years. Not quite 20 years, probably about 15 years, before I finally got up the courage and said, you know what? I'm bringing Woody back. I never should have got rid of him in the first place. So now Buddy is retired. Buddy's downstairs on my shelf in an office. And I recently got a call from a client that I said, well, look on that website, see which, to do some walk around at a corporate party. See which puppet you think you might like, because I don't want to go the wrong way. luckily, it's good to have a variety to offer people. And she said, "Oh, I think the bunny puppet would be good." And I'm like, "Oh, I had a feeling she was going to say that." So I told my wife, I said, "Okay." I said, "Guess who's coming out of mothballs for this gig?" She goes, "Who?" I said, "Buddy." She goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, the kid from Brooklyn. She wants him." Okay, so she'll get Buddy. So I got Buddy, and I had a basically, Buddy was doing most of Woody D's material at the time, except for the black-related stuff. I mean, obviously you couldn't do certain things about, what black, references with Buddy. It didn't work. So now I was using Woody for so long again now, and I was like, what did I used to do with Buddy? So I had to go back and look at some of my old videos and go, oh, okay, now I got it.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with Woody D. In fact, Al Tiemock just made a new Woody D for me.
Oh, great.
And this one has, which the old Woody D didn't have. This one has, winking and blinking eyes, which I always wanted with Woody. Just as an effect, not that I'm going to sit there and blink them every 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But, and I just put a fresh paint coat on him because Alan's paint job was a little off of what I painted my Woody D after 20-some years, and freshened him up. And Alan didn't really match the paint exactly. It was more of a reddish, orangish tinge, which I really didn't care for. So I just painted him last week, and he's outside drying. Him and Mr. Johnson. I gave fresh coats because Mr. Johnson needed a fresh coat because that was the original paint that Tim Selberg put on him. And in and out of the trunks, they get scuffed and scratched and stuff. So he needed a fresh paint job.
Of course. Well, the question I always like to end with, we know what you've done. We know where you've been the innovator in the nightclubs and with Woody D. What do you want to see from this generation that's learning from things like this podcast and coming up through the convention? What do you want to see?
Well, this generation is very fortunate in as much as media-wise, they have a big advantage over us. When I was first starting out, all there was books, and the Jimmy Nelson and Edgar Bergen records, and Bob Neller had a cassette tape. There was no video guides. So in 1981, I decided, you know what, we need to do a videotape on ventriloquism. So I did. I went downstairs in my basement, I set up a little studio thing, and I did video ventriloquism in 1981. It was the first home study ventriloquist course on videotape. Nobody had done it yet.
That's great.
And I often wondered why. Why didn't anybody do this? Because, listening to a record or a tape is one thing, or reading a book, but I'd like to see what it looks like. What is this position in the mouth everybody keeps talking about? What is this manipulation that people, I couldn't see it. So we did that in 1981. We redid it in 1989, a more professional studio-looking thing. We actually went in the studio and did it. And then subsequently, we did Video Ventriloquism 2, what to do if the string breaks, what comes first, the puppet or the voice.
All
so
great
we
videos.
did all,
I've seen them.
Yeah, all these instructional things. And now there's so many. The market has been flooded with home study ventriloquism things. But credit be told, I was the first guy to do it.
Exactly.
So that's the great thing that this generation has over when I came up. There's so many visual aids. I mean, if you're learning ventriloquism today and you suck at it with all these video aids, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. I mean, I'm going to be blunt about it.
Right.
It's not that there's not a lack of training aids out there. There's bazillions of them out there now. So I just want to see this generation. And the other thing that really kind of irks me a little bit is, don't try to ride everybody's coattails with their material. Try to come up with something original of your own. The whole half-mask talking mask thing has got so played out right now. Everybody wants to do a half-mask. And I remember when Ron Lucas first showed me a video of him doing it with the prototype. And at the same exact time he was doing that, I came up with my Sonny and Cher masks. And I told him, I said, Ron, it's amazing how two like minds think. I said, but I just came up with a mask. I said, it's nothing like yours. He goes, well, what is it? And I said, I told him, I said, mine is covers the whole face mask. I said, with a moving pull string. I said, and two little slots for the eyes to look out so they can see. I said, one is Sonny Bono and the other one is Cher. I said, and all they do, they don't talk. They just sing "I Got You, Babe," and I do the singing. He said, well, that's really nothing like what I'm doing. I said, no, I know. I just don't want to get in trouble with you. He said, no, that's nothing at all like what I'm doing. He said, that's great. I said, that's all I do. It's one song. And I first did that at the convention in 1993, the Sonny and Cher thing. And, God, it's been 20 years already? Good Lord. Wow.
Yeah.
And so then I see all these half-masked acts going around, and I'm like, all right, come on now. Just can you do like Ron Lucas did and come up with, a different version or something else, or but everybody's just jumping on that bandwagon and this is, I don't want to think of anything original. I'll just copy, what everybody else did. And that's the easiest thing in the world, is just I've been at the conventions where I've seen people do other people's routines word for word. It's happened to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, can't you just sit down and think of something original? Write something. Don't try to just, well, it worked for Jeff Dunham, so it'll work for me. No. It'll work for you in your little corner of the world, where nobody's really going to see you. But, when you get up in front of real ventriloquists that know better and know where it came from, the first thing they're going to say is, this guy's doing Jeff Dunham. This guy's doing Mark Waid. This guy's doing Ken Groves. This guy's doing Pete Michaels. This guy's doing Ron Lucas. He's doing Jay Johnson. We know. You can't fool us. That's why performing at the convention is always such a challenge. And my son performs, as you know, every year in the open mic. And I tell him, I said, look, don't do anything that anyone else is doing. We're gonna, because I help him write some of the stuff. I said, it's got to be original, except the one year when he did the tribute to Danny and Farfel with Jimmy Nelson. I said, but you got to do something original, Peter, because we've all seen it before, and you're not going to fool anybody with doing someone else's material. They're going to know right away who it is, where it came from, and the first thing they're going to say is, oh, look at him, he's doing Jeff Dunham, he's doing Terry Fator. Like when Terry first started appearing on TV, everybody wanted to sing with the puppets.
Yes,
I want to sing just like Terry Fator. Well, you know what? Some of these people shouldn't sing because they can't. If you can't sing, don't sing.
Right.
I know enough that, if I can't play trumpet, which I can't, I'm not going to try to play trumpet.
Right. You do what you can. You don't attempt to have the skill set.
Well, you know what it is too, Matt? Be yourself. Be original. Learn from the people that have walked the path before you. Pick up little tips and tidbits and techniques and stuff. Fine, but don't copy. Don't just get up there and do someone else's material, and try to call it original. There's one guy out there. I won't even mention his name. There isn't an original line in this guy's whole act. It's, you watch him and you go, okay, that's Jimmy, that's Danny, that's Farfel, that's this, that. He's just taken from everybody else and made an act. And you go, there's not an original joke, original line, original nothing. Well, why do that? Now, the whole thing with Francisco, with Sammy King, I got a lot of flack because of that. Oh, he's doing Sammy King's act. Blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute, folks. Sammy King gave me the act over 3 years ago. Said, listen, I'm retiring Francisco from my act. If you want to do it, you can do it, because of all the guys I know, you're the only one that could pull it off. Great. You've got the accent, you've got the guitar playing skills, the singing ability, blah, blah, blah. And I was flattered. I was floored. I was like, really? I didn't go to him. It wasn't my idea.
Yeah.
He came to me after the convention, after retiring. He said, listen, blah, blah, blah. He said, I've known you for years. I've seen what you can do. I remember you had Gitch, the Puerto Rican puppet. He goes, if you want to do this, I'll make the puppet. You got to pay me for the puppet. But the act, he didn't charge me for the act. He didn't charge me for the music. Nothing. He said, just keep it going as a tribute to me and Francisco. I said, fine. Then I started getting all the daggers, people behind my back. Oh, wait, no, I'm Sammy King. It's a 12-minute bit. It's not an act. I do an hour and a half on stage. That's 12 minutes, and I don't even do it everywhere. I only do that for specific audiences that would get that. You can't do it in a comedy club because that audience doesn't have the patience to wait for the setups and the punchlines.
Right.
Comedy clubs got to be very rapid fire. Boom, 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 boom. That's Woody D's territory, Mr. Johnson's territory.
Like you said earlier, a machine gun.
Yeah, right. This I do. The Francisco act I do because it's a big stage thing. You got to have the guitar, the stand. You got to have the puppet with the cage and everything. it's a big production. You got to have a lot of music, playback. I do that for my special when I do like adult communities, because 50 and over, those crowds get it. They get the references. They have the patience to sit and listen for the setups, and it doesn't take a lot of space. Like in a comedy club, there's no space on the stage. You got a little, tiny little stage, unless you're in a casino or something. But you don't have a lot of room. So the Francisco thing, it takes a little bit of room. And now, Sammy was licensing people that wanted to pay to do the Francisco thing at I think it was like $5,000 per person. And he only limited it to 10 people, And there were 10 people that he felt could do it and stuff like that. So some of those same people that were bad-mouthing me and stabbing me in the back when I first started doing it paid him the money to do it now.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it's good enough to do, for you to do it. But when I was doing it wasn't no good.
Right.
Go figure, But my advice to anybody starting out or the young generation, and I tell my son the same thing. I said, look, just the main thing you got to do, number one, be original. Number two, work on your technique. And I don't just mean lip control, because everybody says, lip control is the most important thing in the world. It is and it isn't. If your lips move a little bit, who cares? Bergen made a whole career out of it. But you got to be funny.
Yeah.
You're a comedian working with puppets. That's really what it is. And your lips don't move. But you got to be funny. You got to have an act. And have characters that people will remember. Not that they go, yeah, we saw this guy and he did the puppet. I forget what it was, but he was funny. You want people to remember, because for years, nobody ever told me Edgar Bergen's name. They always said, oh yeah, I saw Charlie McCarthy on TV last night. No, it was Edgar Bergen. You remember the puppet's name. Oh yeah, we saw, what's his name, Jerry Mahoney.
Right.
But they never mentioned Paul Winchell. So it's okay if people remember the characters. That's fine. Let them remember something. But the characters, work on the manipulation. That puppet's got to be alive. The same thing would happen with Woody D. No matter where I go with Woody D, people go, I swear, I thought I saw him breathing.
Right.
That's what you got to create. The illusion that there are two separate people doing the talking, and two separate people doing the thinking, and that's what makes in my estimation, that's what makes a great act. When people walk away and go, man, I have people come up to me after shows and they go, I swear to God, that Woody D or that Papa or that Mr. Johnson or whoever it was, I swore he was alive. And then you find people arguing. I'm arguing with this puppet. I'm like, yeah, and you're losing.
Wow.
Losing in flames.
Yeah, really. Well, Pete Michaels, what an interesting discussion and an interesting life.
Well, I hope I was answered a few of your questions. Anyway, I didn't mean to go so long-winded.
No, that's fine. I love it. I love sitting here and listening, and so do our listeners. And thank you for the straight talk here at the end about the things that have happened. It's good to have open and honest discussion, and that's what we try to achieve here. So thank you very, very much.
Well, you're very welcome, Matt, and it's a pleasure talking with you. And again, if I can be of any help to anybody, they can visit my website, PeteMichaels.com. We do offer coaching and that kind of stuff too. And like I said, we do have the DVDs, the instructional DVDs. But it's always better to get one-on-one coaching. So we do offer that service as well. And my advice to anybody that's just starting out or just young people that are doing this, just keep at it. I mean, it's better than sitting around and wasting your brain on video games.
Right, exactly.
Because no one's going to pay you to play a video game. I mean, if you can go out there and do this for a living eventually, or even do it part-time and make some money and make a lot of friends. And the one thing you will do is make friends. That's the great thing about being a ventriloquist. I remember, I used to go to Battery Park in Lower Manhattan with Woody D. I had a portable sound system. Battery-operated sound system.
I was just there yesterday. That's so funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I would just set up in Battery Park, and during the Wall Street lunch hour, I would just, sit there with the suitcase opened up and just rip on the crowd and work on material. And that's how I got material. And, if I was there 2 hours, I'd end up with anywhere from $150 to $200 cash.
Great.
But just hanging out and, working on, material. So you will draw a crowd. You take that puppet or that dummy out somewhere, and within 5 minutes, you're going to have a crowd.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to work on new material, too. Just go out there and just wing it and ad-lib it. And sometimes some of your best routines come out of ad-libs.
Yes. It's
so
certainly true.
That's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Thank you very much, Pete Michaels. Thank you so much to Pete Michaels for an engaging interview. That was so much fun for me to just sit back and let him run with it. Now, on to a couple quick things. I sat down and plotted out our schedule. There's a fancy Excel spreadsheet and everything. And I just gotta say, we have so much planned this coming season. It runs the gamut, and it's just awesome. And I want to give you heads up now, considering how short notice it was back in August the last time. Our season finale will be December 9th. Again, due to college. Finals start within that week, studying kind of the rush week for that. And we must move out the following week. So I will have no time to organize an interview and get stuff going for kind of the rest of the month of December. And we will pick up somewhere at some point after the holiday season, beginning of January. Again, I know it is so far off. It's October. You're like, oh my gosh, Christmas? No. It's so far off, but now that I have the dates solidified and I can look at them, I wanted to give you the courtesy of letting you know ASAP, because if I'd have known how this move-in for college was going to work, you guys would have known so much sooner on that end of things. So now I can give it to you in an appropriate amount of time, where it's not like, surprise, no episode for a few weeks. Also, we are working on some things in order to bring back the deleted episodes, so stay tuned. I cannot wait to bring them back. We have my first episode, and the episode with the great Vinnie Ewert has been deleted, but I have them, and they will come back up at some point. And lastly, something I never do, but wanted to take the opportunity here to do so. I am honored to bring my full show to New York City at the Broadway Comedy Club in the Red Room. Beautiful room at 310 to 318 West 53rd Street. It's like 2 blocks up from the Gershwin Theater, where I saw Wicked, the program that I'm in. Went, okay, field trip to Wicked. I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. But I digress. Come on out if you can and get a glimpse of what your humble host does. Visit my website, Magiquist.com, for more. That's Magiquist. Don't go to Quest.com, because that will take you to a role-playing online fantasy game. Don't do it. Don't do it. Magiquist.com. Again, I won't be doing this a lot. Maybe I will. I don't know. I'll stay humble about it, but this is a really unique opportunity for me and those of you in the New York area, and I know there are many. Come on out and see it. We're going to have fun. And that is it for us this week. Write to us. Take charge of your podcast. You are taking charge of your podcast, and I love it. We're getting some great interview submissions, and I cannot wait to pursue them. And that's how I spend a lot of my time, is just emailing people. Want to be on the show? So it's, thank you, and continue to email them in. This show is only as good as you make it. This is content created by you, and I just sit here and put it together. So just email ventriloquismweekly@gmail.com. Most of our episodes are available to download on iTunes. You can also listen and follow us on our hosting site, ventriloquismweekly.podomatic.com. Now, here's a tip. Subway ride? Maybe I gave this tip already. You got a 20-minute subway ride? I know that's usually the average for me. That's what it was from here to where I needed to go today. It was about 20 minutes. Pop in an episode on your iPod and just listen, and that subway ride goes by like that. Just a word of advice. Signing off from New York City for Ventriloquism Weekly, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding all you vents out there to please keep talking for two.